Y'all, I am so excited. Today I am joined by Joe Saul-Sehy. He is quick-witted, he is a money nerd, and he is a co-host of Stacking Benjamins. And if you have ever thought that money is intimidating or felt like it was scary, he's here to tell you that it's not boring or scary. And we're going to dive into his 20-minute money ritual, a weekly check-in that turns financial planning into something that you can actually look forward to, like pancakes or wine. Well, maybe we'll see. And Joe is going to show us how tiny, joyful rituals can lead to big financial clarity, connection, and confidence. So let's do this. Hey, Joe.
Danielle, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. So I wanted you to start out and tell us a little bit about how you decided to be so playful in your approach to money, because I've gotten to chat with you before and it was so flippin' delightful. I listened to your podcast, I've read your book, Stacked, and you really truly do make money and financial planning something that can be exciting, fun, playful. Tell me, why was that important to you?
Well, thank you so much. And we try very hard to have a lot of comedy as a teaching method on purpose because I think that it's the way that I learn.
Mhm.
If I don't feel intimidated, I did public relations for American Express for 17 years when I was a financial planner, and I was a subject matter expert, one of 12 people in the country that would speak on financial planning with major media. And during that time, what I learned was that so many people would freak out whenever you just, we have these crazy names like Roth IRA, like, or 401k. Like, I can't run that far. Like, what are all these crazy names that we have? I feel like we make it harder than it truly needs to be. But it's funny, people told me back in the early days, because Stacking Benjamins has been around for almost 15 years. And so back in the early days of podcasting, people told me, Joe, you should have a podcast. It'd be perfect. I did radio, I'd done television. Why not have a podcast now? And I said, I don't want to be Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey. Yeah, if people don't know who they are, they're big time money people in major media, but they kind of have this vibe. They yell at people about their money. And it's very entertaining to watch Dave Ramsey lay into somebody because they're doing something moronic. But I don't want to be that person. And I don't want to yell at people about their money because I know from the families I worked with, it's already stressful enough. So, anyway, one day I'm mowing my lawn and I always have, headphones in. And so I'm listening to this show on NPR called Car Talk. I don't know if you remember Car Talk,
I do, I do.
but
I
they're
love
these guys.
NPR.
Yeah, well, they're these guys, Click and Clack, they call themselves. They're these brothers, and they know a ton about cars. But you know what I realized? I would laugh all the way through that show. My dad worked for General Motors, but I've always been very intimidated still by cars, though. And they made it so not intimidating to get involved with car culture, and you get excited about the show and just laughing with these people. And as people would call in and explain these complex problems they're having, Click and Clack would go, well, is it making a but noise or is it making a runt noise? And they go, it sounds more like a runt. And it was so funny and so fun. All of a sudden I went, you know what? These guys have a can-do attitude about cars. I'm not really learning about cars as much as I'm enveloped in car culture. So now I can take the next step. So that was the genesis of Stacking Benjamins, was if we can make people feel the same way I felt when I listened to Car Talk, but feel that way about money, like that's where I think we need to be headspace wise to get moving.
I dig that so much. Like, one, because I did listen to Car Talk and I know very little about cars and have very little interest to know about cars. And I still found it really enjoyable to listen to. I have such a funky relationship with money. And, I had to pay attention to money a lot because I was a poor graduate student for like ever. And you have to be intentional then. But there is also this way in which money was this thing that I never have been incredibly motivated by. And yeah, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. And so the idea that you can make it not intimidating is really important to me. And one of the things I wanted to talk with you about today is how we can talk with each other about money. because I think that, you always hear that a major reason for divorce for people is money issues. And so I know that you have a money ritual that could also help couples communicate about money as they also are navigating and being intentional about it. Could you share with me a little bit of what that is?
Yeah, I'd love to. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be with couples. It can be yourself. It can be self-talk. But I love the intentionality of setting the time aside. So here's how this came to be. And the reason I used this with my clients back in the day and why I still preach it today is because it worked for me. And I'll tell everyone that it isn't going to necessarily work the way it works for me, but take it and tweak it and make it your own, make it do what you want it to do. But here's what was happening in our family. My twins were young, and I was trying to build my financial planning practice. My wife was still in school. And so, like you were talking about, being a graduate student, like money was very tight. We would not have, because we were both very busy, we would not spend a lot of time talking to each other about money. And what would invariably happen, like happens with a lot of people, is we would both come home from our opposite places and we both got things that day. We purchased things that were important to the family. Like Cheryl purchased school clothes for our kids, right? Very important. I purchased the latest board game, also incredibly important for the entire family. And what was stressful actually wasn't the fact that I bought a board game and we didn't have any money. It's that we hadn't communicated that we were buying stuff on the same day, and we kept bouncing our checking account all the time because we didn't manage our money well, which then not only caused fights but also caused these huge overdraft. The amount of money I paid Bank of America in overdraft fees back then was horrible. And by the way, I was a financial planner, right? I'm a new financial planner. I'm teaching other people how to handle their money, and I'm doing horrible at it. And so I realized that my clients that did the best with money weren't great at it really because they were spreadsheet nerds. They were great at it because of the way they communicate, especially in a relationship, that they communicate with each other. So I had tried all these different spreadsheets, but if I didn't share them with Cheryl, who doesn't want to do spreadsheets either, it didn't matter what I had. And I also noticed in a lot of families, one person might be a money nerd and the other person wants nothing to do with it, you know? And in our family, even though I was the money nerd, I'll say that my spouse had the heartbeat of what our family needed, like school clothes. And I was in fantasy land. I was like, oh no, we got plenty of money. Didn't pay any attention. I'm too busy fixing everybody else's money issue to worry about my own. So we were fighting a lot. And I thought, okay, here's the issue. If I try to bring up, let's have a money discussion so that I can get on board, and I really feel like I'm plugged into what's going on with my family. For me, this is like a 3-hour Camp David summit. We're going to have all kinds of charts and graphs and stuff. And I thought nothing's going to scare Cheryl more than that. I mean, she'll be so bored with that. So the first time we tried this, and we still do this, I said, let's just talk for 20 minutes. And Cheryl said, well, what are we going to talk about? And so we sat down and we came up with the most simple thing to talk about. And that is, we would just open up the banking app and we just went through the purchases we made the last week. And we just talked through the purchases. So, Joe, you bought a board game. Yeah, great. And I taught it to Cheryl. We had a great time playing it. It was fantastic. Cheryl bought school clothes. We had this. This is how much money we have in the checking account. What was cool was when we first started this, though, we found out a few things. We saw how many subscriptions we actually have to all these streaming services, right? So we found those and we decided to start canceling them. We found that our cell phone bills were way higher than they should have been because we hadn't really comparison shopped our stuff, and we were letting Verizon just charge us a ton of money for a bunch of benefits that we weren't using. We started noticing these things. And what was cool was just going through that together for the first 10 minutes. And then the next 10 minutes, just talking through how we were going to spend money the next week. And we would assign each other tasks. I'll call Verizon and see about the cell phone. Cheryl will cancel Peacock, one of the many subscriptions, right? And we'll divide and conquer. So it wasn't anything big, but what was really neat about it was that these big discussions that people think they need to have with their spouse, their significant other, or even if they're planning by themselves, you just don't have because it feels so big. But what's wild is after 2 or 3 weeks of this quick 20-minute meeting, by the way, we had a timer. At the end of 20 minutes, no matter where we were, Danielle, we were done. It is because it's more important that we do it every week than us to have the 3 hours to get it all done at once. Like the consistency was really important. So after 2, 3, 4 weeks of this, we like to hike. And on our hikes, instead of talking about just what's going on with our kids' school or what's going on in our careers, we would have organically the big money talks. But now, because we were handling the little things like the subscriptions and the cell phone stuff, these big topics didn't feel so intimidating. And it also felt like we were so much more on the same page because we talked about just the little things. So keep it small, keep it short. We also make it fun. So we do it. You mentioned pancakes and wine. We literally do it over pancakes or wine. We have an IHOP that's near our house, and we will
Yeah.
go to the internet. I was intimidated by the IHOP because it's international, and I don't, all those syrups, like, what do you do? So we would either have it at IHOP and have it over pancakes, or we would have it with wine and some music playing in the background and just go through stuff. And oh my God, I can't tell you, this little simple ritual changed everything for our money trajectory.
I love that so much. So after I started reading your book, right away, I started a conversation with my husband, Ryan. And so we did what you were just talking about. And we realized that, y'all, I hate to even say this out loud, but we had two Disney Plus accounts, two of them, that we had been paying for both for I don't know how many years. And also, like, we didn't know what the passwords were to even like sign into some of the accounts to be able to even cancel it. But it did really quickly help us start having that conversation. And I love the idea of one, how do you make it cozy? I'm always like a fan of cozy. So whether that's pancakes or that's wine or whatever the cozy thing is for you, maybe you all get your own snuggie and you talk about your money and your snuggie. And that just by kind of making it a consistent thing that this is something that we talk about together, that it kind of broke open the opportunity for you to keep talking about it in other spaces. And you kind of were developing that skill. So I guess like one of my questions is you find the time, you set the timer, you maybe add in something cozy or delightful so that you don't dread it. Are there any other things that we should know or questions or places we should start?
Well, a couple things. Number one is you need to agree that it's going to be a judgment free zone because we all have our vices. I mentioned the board games because it's easy to pick on myself. Back in the day when we first started doing this, this was I'm an old guy. So this is back before streaming, right? And so Cheryl actually, if you remember, at the end of the grocery store aisle, the movie that had been big the month before, or 2 months before, they would sell it at the end of every register. So Cheryl would buy these stupid movies. And it's funny because, she would talk about me. Joe's buying these stupid board games. She's buying the stupid. We all have our thing, and what was interesting was when we stopped poking at each other's thing and realized that just what it was, this little thing that made us happy. Instead, we were able to work together on how do we make sure we can afford to keep this in our life? If Cheryl wants to buy the movie and she likes buying the movie, then how do we make sure that it fits inside the budget? If Joe wants to buy the board game, how do we make sure that fits inside the budget? For us, we came up with an allowance system. And so we would give each other X amount of money that was no judgment, no nothing. Cheryl comes home with a movie. Joe comes home with a board game. And at first that was because money was very tight. It was such a small amount that I would have to save for like a month to afford the board game, which actually made it even more fun because then I learned about delayed gratification. And, I spoke one time with this guy, Jonathan Clements, who just passed away sadly, but he was the longtime personal finance columnist for the Wall Street Journal and just a lovely guy. But he said that when you go on a family vacation, book it as far in advance as possible because half the deliciousness of the vacation is the dreaming about it ahead of time, thinking about it. And what I found was when I couldn't just walk into a store and buy the first board game I saw, I had to spend 4 weeks thinking about which one I'm going to buy and saving up for it. I noticed I played the game more. I took care of it more. I loved it more. It was really neat, the things that I found out about myself. And it's funny. So I actually bought board games less, but that wasn't really the point. The point was that I appreciated what I was doing more. So anyway, judgment free zone, number one. Number two is look for patterns. For us, it was Cheryl has her stuff, I have mine. So create a system for it, an allowance. So at the end of our meeting, we give each other an allowance. If I didn't spend on my allowance, I would spring for dinner for us, sometimes, or she would spring for dinner. We'd have date nights where we'd take each other out using our allowance money. That was fun. And I think using apps, if possible, your banking app is usually better than people think that it is. We've now switched over. We use an app called Monarch Money that we pay
Okay.
for. Monarch is really neat because you can set up the screens so that what you think is important is on your main screen, and what Cheryl thinks is important is on the front page of her screen. So Cheryl loves the minute by minute budget of our money. How much is in the checking account? What are we spending on groceries? How much is this? Like the budget numbers are really what turns her on about money. For me, it's the investing part, right? So I always have the net worth statement. If we made any money today, if we lost money in the markets, and then the budget's on page 2. For hers, it's the opposite way. But what's cool is we have one account. So you pay one subscription because it is a paid for app, but it really is neat and makes our meetings pretty fun. The other thing I like about Monarch for us is that they have this notification system where the second we go over one of our budget areas, it tells you. And by the way, for people listening, Danielle's making a face right now. Like,
I'm like so scared. I like can feel those notifications just like popping up.
well, I'll tell you, we just went on vacation last week, and we were at Dollywood, this theme park, in near Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And we're at Dollywood and we're having lunch. And in the middle of lunch, it says that our restaurant budget we have now exceeded, which of course we have because we're on vacation. And
Yeah.
we laughed about it because of course we're sitting there shoving food in our mouth, and boom, there's the notification. You're overboard. But I do love that we get notifications that tell us just these little reminders. Hey, maybe you spent too much in this one area, and then it gives us something else that we can talk about. But I think the big problem people have when they start this is getting rid of the finger pointing is hard. It's so hard to not point the finger at your spouse and go, why are you buying the stupid movies when we could be renting them at that time or now streaming them? Why are we buying this stuff? You can't do that. She can't do it about the board game. You can, but it just goes nowhere.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really struck by is when I started really getting into planning and time management, I realized that it really wasn't about managing my time as much as it was about learning about myself. And I love the ways that this provides an opportunity for you to go, oh, that matters to you. Guess what? This matters to me. And I didn't know that until the idea of board games being taken away, right, was like there. And I think that there's something so powerful about kind of flipping the script on we're doing the planning to kind of manage things versus we're coming together to look at our finances as a way to learn about what matters to each of us and to our family so that we can put our finances where it's important to us.
Well, that's what's exciting the most to me is that, money discussions, the way that you opened this episode, money discussions they are boring. They can be super hard. But what's not as hard is talking about what that money brings you. It brings you freedom. It brings you the ability to tell your boss to take a hike, the ability to enjoy a vacation at Dollywood or to do, so talking about the things that you value and do I value this or not, which is really, truly, I think what we're getting at when you walk through your banking app every meeting. You're going, do I value this Peacock subscription? No, I've watched Peacock in 2 months. Do I value Disney Plus so much I'll pay for it twice? No, probably not, right? And you find these things, and now you feel pretty empowered. I mean, Peacock was, when we canceled Peacock, it was costing us like $8.50 a month. But I got to tell you, getting rid of Peacock was every bit as fun as buying a board game was. Just knowing that I was in charge. And by the way, there is a little, I don't know that I love the word hack, but there's a little hack here, Danielle, which is this. If you find something to cut, that's cool. But people think money's about discipline, and it's not.
So tell me more.
Yeah, it's about automation.
Mhm.
It's 100% about automation. So if I cancel Peacock and it's $8.50 a month, I take that $8.50 and I change my direct deposit into my savings by $8.50. So not only do I find $8.50, but I capture it. Or let's say it's Netflix and it's $25 a month. And it's funny because one of these things, somebody listening to us might go, well, Joe, it's $25 a month. That's not a big deal. And what's funny is on the surface, it's not. But if I can automate an extra $25 a month, that's $300 a year. Still, people will go, don't get me wrong, $300 is $300 and I'd rather have it. But $300 over the course of the year, still not a lot. But over the course of 10 years, that's $3,000. $3,000 for me is like 2 nice long weekend vacations. And if you told me that I could take 2 more vacations every 10 years for the cost of just cutting $25 a month that I don't care about, I do that in a heartbeat. Like, are you kidding me? Heck yeah. So I think we think, yeah, it's only $25 or it's only $8.50. But man, when I find that money, you have to add it to a direct deposit into a savings account where you won't touch it. Because for me, if I'm a spender at heart, so if I've got money somewhere where I can get at it, I will get at it. It's funny because this guy, I spoke about Dave Ramsey before. Dave Ramsey says you should always use cash. And for a lot of people, that makes sense. For me, if I have cash in my wallet, I burn it. You know why? Because it's not accountable. I can take cash and I don't have to talk about it at the meeting with Cheryl next week. If it goes on my credit card or it goes on my debit card, I have to talk about it. And you know what? And I like talking about it. So for me, I live a 100% plastic lifestyle because it is completely intentional and there are repercussions. And not that Cheryl's going to do anything, but if I make a stupid purchase, I just don't want, Joey, you had ice cream 4 times last week. Like, what are you doing? And it's not about the budget. Look at your waistline.
I think we're very similar. We learned, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago or so, that one of our best financial tools was to have a bank account that we didn't know how to access.
Oh, it's so beautiful,
So
isn't it?
we just automate things to it, and I can get cash out of it. I don't really know how to. I haven't figured out how to connect it to any other accounts to transfer things.
That's
I could
so awesome.
probably learn those things, but it would be a pain. And so that has been we probably ought to invest some of it to make it go even more. But like that was a tool that we learned was, just put it somewhere that we don't know how to access. And when it's time to, we'll figure it out.
We used to do that with clients. I would do this with clients. If I had a client that was like me and there was money in the checking account and they knew it was in the checking account, I would spend it, right? That is totally me. So what I would help people set up was a separate bank across town. And if it was an emergency, you would get in your car and you would drive there. We would get rid of the debit card. We'd make sure there was no online access. You had to drive across town. And the cool thing about that, to your point, is if it truly is an emergency, you'll drive across town. If it's an emergency, who cares about a 20-minute drive across town? But if it's not an emergency, we are naturally lazy as people. And I'm like, I don't want to drive across town. And your brain finds these other ways around the problem versus the quick and easy. Let's just take the money out and pay somebody for this thing. It is really cool, which also is another cool hack. There are all these ways that money is more accessible and easier. And sometimes putting friction in the way is a really good thing, is a really good tool. So the fact that you don't know how to get into that account is awesome. Like that friction is the way that you will end up having a nice emergency fund, that's there when something bad, the next time your hot water heater dies or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, this just happened to us, y'all. So, and it has been a lift, let me put it that way.
I thought you were going to say too soon. Too soon,
A
Joe.
little too soon, a little too soon. It so strikes me the ways in which we have some of these behavior change tools, right? Like if I were going to work on cleaning up my eating, I would take all of the crap out of our pantry and I would make it hard. Like, Danielle, are you going to get in the car and drive to the grocery store for a Pop Tart? Right. And so it's so interesting that we know how to create friction. We know how to make certain things easy, like automation. And we do them in some areas of our lives. And then in other areas of our lives, we're kind of like, oh, how would I do this?
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me that we might have the same sort of tools, but when we try to adapt them to new situations, it might need, we might need having a conversation with someone like you to go, oh, actually, I do know how to use this behavior change tool. Let me apply it in this situation.
Yeah. It is wild. The idea of having a third I haven't been a financial planner in a long time, but I will tell you that I still am very, very much in love with the idea of having people in your corner. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a financial planner, but just somebody who you trust, who who's not in the minute by minute life of being Danielle, that is looking at your life and is helping you navigate and pointing out these things that are right in front of you that you can't see because you're too busy working on whatever your zone of genius is.
Mhm.
And frankly, we should do that more often anyway. Like, I think good money management means finding ways to think about it less. If I can think about it less and think more about the things that light me up and the things that make me money, which for a lot of people might be the same thing. Well, if I can spend more time there, my net worth will get much higher than worrying about, how am I going to get $8.50 saved? But to do that, often I feel like we need somebody who is, I'm thinking like Taylor Swift. I don't need Taylor Swift, but you, Danielle, are Taylor Swift. And I know enough about Taylor Swift. I'm not a Swiftie, but I know enough about Taylor Swift that she has great people around her who help her be the best version of Taylor Swift that she can be. She has a manager who takes care of these little things. She's got, I'm sure she probably has a housekeeper. She's got these people in her life that are telling her that's a bad idea. Taylor, you shouldn't do this, or this is a good idea. Now, I also know enough about Taylor Swift that she is 100% in charge. She doesn't let somebody else take her life and run with it. She's the CEO, but she has the smart people around her. Another analogy that might be better, I mentioned my dad's a GM guy, was a GM guy his entire career. And when he worked there, it was right about the time that the current CEO, Mary Barra, was coming into power. And I'm just imagining Mary is the CEO of General Motors. She knows a ton about a car, but she still has all these great VPs that run the different areas that are informing her. So Mary does it. What bothered me when I was a financial planner was people that would come to a meeting with me twice a year and they would go, Joe, how's this money thing doing? And I'm like, it's your money. You're the one that's in charge of this. Like, I'm your hired help, but it's yours. You are the CEO. I'm just your VP. Mary doesn't show up to work at GM twice a year and go, so guys, how's the car thing going? Everything going great? And just check in and spot. No, she's got to know about the car. So I think you do have to know about money and how it works in your life and how you spend stuff. But having those VP people around you, whether they're paid or just great friends who are good with money, so valuable to your life.
Absolutely. We don't have to do this alone. And I love the way that if you have this ritual built in, whether that's a weekly or monthly thing, that then that actually is going to provide you with the ability to not think. And then you can have these support networks around you. Like you said, whether it's a financial planner, but I also think I always say some of my best mentors come through books that I read or podcasts that I listen to. And those are usually very cheap or free. And so, to be able to draw on those sorts of things, like, oh, if I am at a stage where I need to think about money a bit more before I can start ignoring it, right?
Yeah, we have access now to your point that we never had before with
Yeah,
YouTube University, and so many universities now have a lot of their curriculum online.
absolutely. And I think that we can just access those things regularly as a way to actually help us think through those things.
Yeah.
And to go, "Oh, yeah, I forgot. I do have that tool. Oh, yeah, I did download Rocketbook for a while as an app. I should maybe, use it." And I do think that we do these things and then we need something to pull us back to it. And so I love the idea of the ritual and to think about the ritual as this kind of like pull back to it and normalize talking about it, normalize thinking about it, but then also recognize that that will give you the tools that you need so that you don't have to think about it when you're working
Yeah.
in your zone of genius.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, the thing that every study I've seen shows is that the number one thing that causes workers to not pay attention in their job is their financial situation. Like
Mm,
they're so worried about their financial situation that they're having trouble focusing on whatever the thing is, that the project that they're working on. So even if it's not you, if you're somebody that manages other people, being able to help them take that off their plate, I think is super important too. That also, by the way, I like this ritual weekly on purpose. And
mhm.
that's another reason why I like it to be short. I don't like it monthly, by the way. Some people do it monthly, but there's so much to talk about that it ends up being longer. And when it's longer, then it gets boring. If it's weekly and you have it the same day every week and just do it and get it done. There's some weeks when Cheryl and I start the meeting, we're like, oh God, do we really got to do this week? Let's not. And then we try to find our fun thing, right? If this week it's not wine, maybe it's it's going out hiking. We actually have had our talk while we're hiking before, but we try to find a thing, spend the 20 minutes and do it. We're busy people still. You're busy. I know everybody listening to this is busy. We have weeks where we just don't have the meeting. And I will tell you what's funny, Danielle, when we don't have the meeting 3 or 4 weeks in a row, I can feel it now. Like
Mm.
I can totally feel it. I'm like, I'm lost. I don't know where we're at. Cheryl's like, I don't know where we're at. Let's have our meeting. And it's so weird to hear us like get excited. Let's have our meeting. We got to have our meeting because we haven't had it in 3 weeks.
It grounds you.
It 100% grounds you, which also is why I like it weekly. The more I do it, the more it is, man, I get out of that 20 minutes and I just feel so good. I feel so good. I'm like, okay, I got a handle on it. And we didn't have a spreadsheet. We have the app, but whether you use Monarch or your banking app or whatever, I don't think that's the key. Just talking, talking it out is 100% the key.
Well, I've loved this so much. If people wanted to keep learning from you, to adopt you as one of their mentors, how could they do that?
We have this show, which the amazing Danielle has been on, helping us, by the way, with intentionality and ritual, which I think is super important. It's called the Stacking Benjamin Show, and it's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We call it the greatest money show on earth because it's a circus on purpose. It's a variety show. So think of it like the Tonight Show or Morning Drive Radio. It is very, very, if you don't like what we're talking about, stick around because 20 minutes later, we're going to be talking about some other aspect of money. And if you don't like dad jokes, you probably should not listen to our show.
It's so delightful. It's so fun and it's upbeat and you all do such a phenomenal job with it. So, yes, go listen, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we used to think we were funny. We were just some finance guys and we thought we were funny. And we got some great feedback, by the way, early on. People going, these guys aren't as funny as they think they are. And at first I got angry. I was like, oh, no, 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 I'm funny. And then I thought about it. I'm like, there's these comedians who spend their entire career thinking about comedy and thinking about jokes. So Danielle, about 10 years ago, we started taking comedy classes and now we study comedy consistently. We are always studying comedy. We've had comedians as writers on our staff. Yeah, the comedy really makes the medicine go down.
I love that. And I always love when people take the art and the mastery so incredibly seriously while having a ton of fun with it. So Thank you so much. It has been a joy to have you here.
Thanks a ton for having me.